Introducing new Crystal from Pepsi, the first citrus cola.
Philips invents CDI, the ultimate machine for compact discs and amazing pictures. Philips invents.
You won't believe these innovations actually existed. If you grew up in the 80s or 90s, your house probably had at least one of these innovations hiding somewhere. Maybe it was the movie disc the size of a pizza, or the blue ketchup your parents bought once and never again. These weren't just products. They were the experiments of an era when companies were throwing wild ideas at us, hoping one would stick. Some became legends. Most fizzled out fast, but every single one left a memory. And the further we get from those years, the funnier they seem. Let's look back at the strangest ones you might have lived through. Number 1. Sony Betamax.
And does things nobody else's does. It's the Betamax.
Some of you probably will remember when your dad swore Betamax was the better tape, and he wasn't wrong. The picture was sharper, the sound was cleaner, but here's the problem. The tapes barely held a full movie. Renting one felt like buying a Ferrari that couldn't drive farther than the grocery store. Meanwhile, VHS showed up with longer recording times, cheaper players, and way more movies available to rent. Suddenly, every rental shelf was stacked with VHS, and Betamax was left collecting dust. It's one of those classic moments where the technically better product still lost. And if your family actually owned a Betamax, you probably remember the struggle of finding something to watch while your neighbor's VHS collection took over the weekend. Number 2. LaserDisc.
The latest and greatest movies are on LaserDisc at Video and Sound downtown.
Then came LaserDisc, and wow, that thing looked futuristic. A shiny silver platter the size of a pizza that promised theater-quality movies right in your living room. The picture was beautiful for the time, and film nerds loved it. But if you were unlucky enough to own one, you remember the headache. Halfway through the movie, you had to stop, flip the disc, and sometimes even switch to disc 2 if it was a long film. Not exactly movie night magic. And don't even mention the scratches. One bad bump and the disc was toast. For most households, it was way too much effort. LaserDisc ended up being more of a collector's item than a family staple. And eventually, DVD came along and did everything better without the pizza-sized hassle. Number 3. Philips CDI.
Philips invents CDI, the ultimate machine for compact discs and amazing pictures. Philips invents.
And then there was Philips CDI. If you remember this one, you probably remember the confusion. It was marketed as an all-in-one machine. It played games, movies, even educational software, which sounded amazing, except it did none of those things particularly well. The graphics were clunky, the movies looked grainy, and the infamous Zelda games became the butt of jokes for decades. For the price, families expected magic. What they got was more like a weird hybrid between a computer and a VCR. Most people never saw one outside of a store demo, but if you did have one at home, chances are it ended up abandoned in the TV cabinet once the PlayStation, N64, and affordable DVD players rolled in. So yeah, the living room in the 80s and 90s was basically a battlefield of next big things that weren't always so big. But the experiments didn't stop there. It got even wilder. Number 4. Lawn darts.
This isn't child's play, according to the Food and Drug Administration. The game is called lawn darts.
If you grew up in the 80s, there's a good chance someone in your neighborhood had lawn darts. And if they did, you also remember how terrifying they were. They looked like giant metal spears disguised as toys. The idea was simple. Toss them in the air. Try to land them in a plastic ring target. In reality, they'd come whistling down like javelins while kids sprinted in every direction. Thousands of injuries later, the government stepped in and banned them. And honestly, thank goodness. It's amazing these things ever made it past the toy label. Today, you've got newer versions that are way safer. But if your backyard had the real thing, you probably still remember that mix of fun and fear every time one left someone's hand. Number 5. Handheld TVs.
The Pocket TV by Casio. Another outstanding value from Urban General.
Now, if lawn darts didn't get you, maybe you were glued to one of those early handheld TVs. Remember those? They looked like little radios with a screen barely bigger than a playing card. Owning one was like being handed the future in your pocket. You could watch baseball in the car, or at least try to. The signal was terrible, the picture was fuzzy, and if you moved an inch, you'd lose the channel completely. Most of the time, you just saw static and shadows. Still, when you did get it working, it felt magical. Of course, fast forward a couple decades and we've got smartphones that stream anything instantly. But back then, just getting a game to appear on that tiny screen made you feel unstoppable. Number 6, Clairol Yogurt Shampoo.
Now, Clairol's put yogurt with natural organic protein into new, shimmery, shiny Touch of Yogurt shampoo.
Imagine walking into your bathroom in the late 70s or early 80s and seeing a bottle of shampoo with the word yogurt splashed across the front. Some of you actually had it in your house. Clairol thought putting real yogurt in shampoo would scream natural and healthy. Instead, people thought it was a snack. No joke, there were reports of folks tasting it, thinking it was some trendy new yogurt drink. It didn't last long before it was pulled, but if you saw it on the shelf, you remember that weird moment of confusion. Is this for my hair or for my breakfast? These days, natural shampoo means aloe or coconut, but yogurt? Let's just say that experiment got flushed fast. Number 7, Crystal Pepsi.
Hi, introducing new Crystal from Pepsi, the first citrus cola.
Fast forward to the 90s and Pepsi decided cola should look like water. Crystal Pepsi was everywhere for about a year, complete with a Super Bowl commercial blasting Van Halen's Right Now. And kids loved showing it off. Look, it's Pepsi, but it's clear. Problem was, it didn't taste like Pepsi. It was sweeter, almost like a flat Sprite pretending to be soda. Parents bought it once, kids begged for it twice, and then it vanished. Still, if you grew up in that window, you remember walking into a convenience store and spotting that weird clear bottle in the fridge. It felt futuristic for about 5 minutes. Then it became one of the most 90s things ever. A product everyone remembers, but almost nobody actually misses. Number 8, Heinz EZ Squirt Colored Ketchup.
Squirt. It's fun for your food.
The Heinz EZ Squirt was the ketchup that turned dinner into an art project. It hit the shelves around 2000, but plenty of 90s kids remember it. The bottles came in colors like blastin' green, funky purple, and even mystery pink. On commercials, kids were squeezing smiley faces on burgers and doodling on fries like it was the best idea ever. In real life, it looked gross. A green blob on your chicken nuggets was enough to make parents lose their appetite. Still, kids loved it. Until the novelty wore off and everyone just wanted normal red ketchup again. But for a short while, family cookouts looked like a Nickelodeon slime experiment gone wrong. Number 9, E.T. the video game.
E.T. get home just in time for Christmas. Happy holiday.
Ask anyone who had an Atari in the early 80s and they'll tell you about the disaster that was E.T. the Extraterrestrial. It was rushed out in time for Christmas and the hype was huge. Kids tore into the box expecting to play one of the biggest movies of all time. Instead, you fell into pits. Over and over again. The graphics were beyond poor, the gameplay made no sense, and frustration set in fast. Millions of unsold cartridges piled up in warehouses until Atari literally buried them in a New Mexico landfill. For years, people thought it was just an urban legend, until the site was dug up in 2014, and yep, there they were. If you played this game back then, you remember the rage. And if you didn't miss much. Number 10, Nintendo Virtual Boy.
New from Nintendo, it's Virtual Boy, the video game system that puts you in the act.
Fast forward to the 90s and Nintendo gave us the Virtual Boy. This thing looked like the future, a tabletop red headset that promised 3D gaming. Kids lined up to try it, only to walk away rubbing their eyes. The graphics were all red, the games were limited, and after 10 minutes, most players had headaches. Parents hated it, kids couldn't sit through it, and Nintendo quietly pulled the plug within a year. Only a handful of games even came out for it. If you were one of the rare kids whose parents actually bought one, you probably got laughed at by your friends after they tried it once and tapped out. It's remembered today as Nintendo's biggest flop, but at least it gave us something to laugh about. Number 11, Reebok Pump Sneakers.
The Reebok Pump. Pump up and air out.
If you went to school in the early 90s, you definitely remember that one kid with Reebok pumps. They'd crouch down before gym class, squeeze that little orange basketball on the tongue of the shoe, and suddenly act like they were ready for the NBA. And yeah, it looked cool. Until it didn't. Because once the novelty wore off, you realized it was basically a sneaker with a balloon inside. They sold for about $170 back then, which was outrageous. And half the time, the air bladder would leak or pop, Still, for a short stretch, those shoes were a flex. If you had pumps, you probably felt untouchable for about 2 weeks. Number 12, Harley Davidson perfume. Now this one might make you laugh. In the mid-90s, the famous Harley Davidson decided to bottle their brand, not in motor oil, in perfume. Because nothing says romance like the scent of asphalt and exhaust. Some of you might remember spotting the black bottles in department stores right next to actual Harley gear. And sure, it looked tough on the outside, but the idea of smelling like a motorcycle didn't exactly take off. It bombed so fast that today it's a permanent exhibit in the "what were they thinking" category. If your mom or dad got one as a gag gift, you probably remember the jokes that followed. Harley's cologne dream may have died quick, but at least it gave us one of the funniest brand missteps of the 90s. Number 13, Kodak disc camera.
But while I've got you here, I want you to know what I want for graduation is a Kodak disc camera.
Family birthdays, vacations, Christmas mornings. If someone in your house had a Kodak disc camera in the 80s, you probably remember how futuristic it felt. The film came in these flat little discs instead of bulky rolls, which looked super high-tech at the time. But then you'd get the photos back from the drugstore and yikes. Blurry faces, washed out colors, and grain that made it look like everyone was living in a fog. Kodak promised easy film, but what you really got was a stack of prints you couldn't hang on the fridge. A lot of parents stuck with them anyway because the design felt so modern. But eventually, 35mm cameras made a comeback, and when digital cameras showed up, the disc camera disappeared overnight. Number 14, Sony Mini Disc. The Sony Mini Disc came out in the early 90s, and it was a hit. It felt like something we've never seen before. Imagine a tiny, rewritable disc in its own plastic case, small enough to slip in your pocket. You could record music, make custom mixes, and scribble your playlist on the label with a Sharpie. For kids who were serious about music, this was the future. But the problem? It was way too expensive, and by the time people started noticing it, CD burners and MP3 players were already stealing the spotlight. Still, if you owned one, you probably remember showing it off like a prized possession. The player, the satisfying little click when you slid the disc in, it all felt so cool, even if it didn't stick around. Number 15, Apple Newton. If you or your parents were into gadgets in the 90s, you might remember the Apple Newton. On paper, it sounded incredible. A personal digital assistant that could take notes, keep your schedule, even read your handwriting. In reality, it was more like arguing with a stubborn pen pal. The handwriting recognition barely worked, turning simple words into comedy. Hello could come out as Jello. The device became such a joke, it was parodied in The Simpsons and comic strips like Doonesbury. And yet, for a moment, it felt like a glimpse into the future. A chunky little tablet before tablets were even a thing. It never caught on, but if you ever saw one in action, you probably thought, wow, this is either genius or ridiculous. Looking back, these innovations were more than just products. They were part of your everyday life, sitting in your living room, crammed into your kitchen cabinets, or pulled out at backyard parties. Some of them made you laugh, some made your parents roll their eyes, and some, like lawn darts or the Virtual Boy, probably made you wonder how they ever made it past the drawing board. But that's what makes them unforgettable. They remind us of a time when companies were willing to throw out the wildest ideas just to see if they'd stick. And even though most of them didn't, they left behind stories we still talk about today. So which one do you remember most? Was it the ketchup that turned your burger blue? Or the sneakers you pumped up before gym class? Drop your favorite memory in the comments. Let's laugh about them together. Oh, and please leave us a like and subscribe to the channel for more incredible nostalgic moments.